Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast, where we dive deep into the media industry headlines and dissect the digital disruption that diverges the masses into the new media counterculture and away from the media establishment. Here is the king of podcasts.
It's one thing to have movies like Spider-Man or the Batman or any of your cinematic universe movies come into play to bring people back to the theaters with mostly a younger audience. And then there's these kind of moments, these events like Top Gun, which is multi-generational. A movie that returns with a sequel eventually was supposed to be 25 years ago, but now it's actually 26, thanks to the pandemic. But we're here, and the movie is finally here. Top Gun Maverick is there this weekend. I know some people have probably already seen it, and if by the time you get this here, you will have probably seen it as well. By the way, I have not watched it yet. I'm watching it Friday night, 10 o'clock in RPX at the Regal here where I'm at in Florida. And, I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone else has been saying is that, a lot of critics are really pumping this movie up and really giving it a great rating so far, saying it's better than the original. And that's really high. That's high honor if they can make that happen. And here we go. So far, at this moment, Top Gun Maverick already has a 97% fresh on the Rotten Tomatoes. Audience score, 99%. That is wild. I don't know many movies that can really get that high a mark. The other movie I got to watch this weekend, which will be secondary, of course, is the Bob's Burger movie, which is also a big winner critically. 87% on the critics, 91% for the audience. That is wild. So I'm looking forward to it. I got some really good movies to watch this weekend, and that goes along with the entire set of movies we have coming up this weekend, or excuse me, that's going to be coming up in general. That's really going to stand out. The summer of movies is back. Summer box office season is here. And I'd like to see if that's really going to just get people to go to the theaters on a real run. I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, this is the Broadcasters Podcast. Thanks for being here. I'm King of Podcasts, and thanks for listening in. As you know, I have a number of shows that I do on the network, and I never promote them at all on this channel, but I'll do it here for a minute. You can always listen to my Wrestling is Real podcast, the one I've been doing for almost 10 years, coming up in December. WrestlingIsReal.com. Of course, the website for this show is BroadcastersPodcast.com. And I have another companion series that I have decided to make some changes to, which is Depraved and Debaucherous. It's very much social commentary, dating advice, profiles in just young people and society and just the generational change, and just helping young guys and girls out there have some structure as to where things are going, to maybe learn a little something from someone like me, from a very, what do I say, very relaxed, very understandable, non-judgmental platform. That's what Depraved and Debaucherous is. So I have new episodes that come on there through audio-wise. You can look for it wherever you find podcasts, including where you find this show: Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, Spreaker, Stitcher, all of those places. And you can find the show in audio form. Every Monday and Friday, I do new mini episodes, and then I have a longer form episode in real life, the IRL episodes that happen on Wednesday nights. Or on Wednesdays, they're available on Wednesdays anyway. And all of that's available on the YouTube channel as well if you want to catch it in video format. Not all of it's in video format, but some of it is. YouTube.com/JBRASCO951. And that's where you can find all my other content. Which, the video side, Mondays and Tuesdays is the Depraved and Debaucherous content. Then you got the Wrestling is Real podcast Wednesday nights, Thursday nights with Broadcasters Podcast. And that's how it works. 4 days a week, or excuse me, 5, because I do include 3 episodes of Depraved and Debaucherous. I've been working hard. The King of Podcast Radio Network is very much fluid and very much content heavy, and I don't take time off. But eventually I should. But I'll let you know if I do. It's just right now I just haven't bothered. Been too busy doing other things for myself. So anyway, there you go. We got a bunch of movies to get started with. And when it comes to the box office season coming up, the release schedule is pretty heavy right now because now nobody's worrying about what's going on. We have multiple widescreen releases going on now through the summer to get things really started, namely Bob's Burgers and Top Gun Maverick that come out this weekend. And then you got June 3rd, we have Watcher. And then, as with big blockbuster movies, no one wants to go up against Top Gun, so it'll take a while for any major movies to come in and take their own spot. Because all the big blockbuster movies are basically taking their own time and splitting aside. They do not want to compete head-to-head, so as to make sure they can make the most optimal of money that they can possibly can. Now, Jurassic World Dominion comes up on June 10th. Lightyear, which is the spinoff from the Toy Story series, is June 17th. And June 24th, we have two movies, The Black Phone, horror movie, and Elvis, featuring Austin Butler and Tom Hanks. And then after that, July 1st is Minions, The Rise of Guru, and Master Malcolm's List. Thor Love and Thunder is July 8th. And then after that, DC League of Super Pets, July 29th. And there's other movies in between, by the way. Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank. And on top of that, August 5th, a lot of movies coming out. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Bullet Train. That's a Brad Pitt movie I've been watching a lot of trailers for. Easter Sunday and Secret Headquarters. Mac and Rita, August 12th. Beast, August 19th. The Bride, August 26th. Fair Samaritan are also on August 26th. And that's where we are right there. So some movies have pushed along, but you still have some pretty good, solid blockbuster movies that are coming out. And the way they're being spread out is actually helping at all when it comes to the money that's being made on said movies. Let's look at where we are so far. Well, let me look at the annual box office so far. And at the moment, The Batman has been the most highest grossing movie to date. It has grossed domestically $369 million. Doctor Strange is $351 million. Spider-Man No Way Home, $231 million gross domestically. Sonic the Hedgehog, Uncharted round out the top five. And those are five movies that are all cinematic universe based. And they were all pretty much spread out. So there wasn't really that much that was going to go up and compete against them. Because everybody decided to spread out and not try to compete all at once. Which I can understand what they're trying to do. And when I look at the numbers across the board for these movies, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness so far, that movie's pulled in $813 million domestically, so it's pulling its way towards $1 billion. It could get there soon. And you look at Sonic the Hedgehog, also another one that's just gone and go lightning. $369 million worldwide so far for them. And then when you look at, I'm looking through and I'm saying to myself, okay, Morbius was one of the movies that was supposed to stand out well, but did not. It still is making its money, $162 million so far, but there were a lot of bad reviews that didn't help that movie. Didn't do any favors for it either. The Batman so far has pulled in $768 million. So it's going to take a while. Maybe it'll break $1 billion at some point, but it's a matter of what it can do in terms of the video on demand stuff right now at this point. So no movie's going to make $1 billion. They're not going to do what Spider-Man did, but that's still $250 million for the Marvel and DC movies is a pretty good story to tell. We'll give it that. And then other than that, there's not much else that's really stood out. So, movies we need some help with, and there are still some movies that are coming out that maybe will do really well. We'll see how it works out. Because when you have Thor, Mission Impossible, Elvis, among others, and then you still have some good movies coming up at the end of the year that just really stand out. It's not we're going to get, the movie experience is not one yet where you're going to get a consistent amount of releases that we thought originally were going to come out, and we were going to get jam-packed with movies all the way across. The movie studios decided to spread them out. I don't like that move. I wish we had something that would continue to give us movies that we could watch regularly on a pretty consistent basis. during the weekends, but that's tough. And they're not giving it that so much. And that's too bad. Now, there might be some limited movies that might do a difference, but we're not getting that right now. And that's what sucks. So even after the fall ends up, and we get into the fall, I mean, there's movies that are coming out, but not till later on. You're talking about Avatar, September 23rd. That should make a big play. And then you look at Halloween Ends on October 14th. Black Adam, October 21st. So Halloween weekend is going to be loaded. And then let's see, Black Panther Wakanda Forever wraps up the Marvel schedule this year, November 11th. And then you have Creed 3 on November 23rd. And then you look at another Avatar. Oh, wait a minute. Am I right about this? Hold on. So, they're re-releasing Avatar. Oh, September 23rd. September 23rd, they're going to re-release Avatar in anticipation for Avatar 2, The Way of Water, December 16th. So, right in time for Christmas time. And there's a lot of movies coming out after that. Shazam! Fury of the Gods is December 21st. And as we know, that was taking the place of where Aquaman was supposed to be. That got pushed around. And that was because of the whole thing with the movie theaters and the way movies were performing and which movies were going to do well and which ones were not. Because when you look at the actual schedule, it's only the big event movies that are really doing well at all this year. Because when you're looking at everybody else, it's not as much. When you look even at the top 10, Lost City is one of them, but that's, a star vehicle for Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock. Fantastic Secrets, that also is there, but that would be more or less in the cinematic universe for Harry Potter. Sing 2, sequel. Scream, a long returning sequel. And The Bad Guys, which is Universal Pictures animated, that is one of the first children's movies to take off this year, it looks like. So, anyway, let's get into what we're learning about Top Gun when it comes to how well it's going to do and where it can really do. Paramount Pictures is the ones that are behind this, and they expect it to be one of the biggest hits of the decade. So, in the story they talk about, it's Top Gun Maverick expected to be a movie that could be one of the studio's biggest box office hits since the Transformers franchise a decade ago. And Paramount, as of late, has been more reliant on Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible films to deliver the big bucks, with new franchises like A Quiet Place and Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, Top Gun Maverick is expected to blow up all the records that are out there. They expect it to easily surpass the opening of Mission Impossible Fallout, 4-day opening of at least $90 million, but this could also be the first Tom Cruise-led film to earn an opening of over $100 million, even if it needs the extended 4-day period to reach that mark. If it does overperform, it'll be Paramount Pictures' highest-grossing domestic release since Transformers: Age of Extinction for $245 million in 2014. The critics are saying great about this, better than the original, is what they're saying. And also, they're feeling like this movie is definitely going to bring in the younger audiences, for whom the Top Gun originally opened long before their time. Even if turnout is lower compared to Marvel and DC films, the word of mouth post-release could bring people over in the next 2 weeks. And this is also for the overseas market on trying to get that pushed out. The movie will not be released in China or Russia. We know why. The first Top Gun did not get a worldwide audience. So can it really change out this time around? But there you go. That's a huge thing if they're able to pull that off. And that the movie has gotten better than they expect. That's what I'm also just realizing. It's just the level. And I really want to see what the movie theater is going to look like once they go in tomorrow night to see how big a mark is going to be. All I can tell you is I'm looking at my movie theater. They're going to run the movie 37 times. I don't even know how many screens you're going to have to run it through. I'm going to imagine they have to use about 10 screens or 10 or 12 of the 18 screen theater that they have. They're going to have to run that many screens. And one of them is the RPX, which is the big one, which is where I'm going to watch it, trying to get the best possible sound and screen and picture for it. That's what we're looking at. Now, some people might think it could get as $130 million as well. This is also being played in the most amount of cinemas in the history of theater. Almost 5,000. 4,732 cinemas. That is nuts. Now, the movie was supposed to come out in summer 2020, but this all got scrambled. And Paramount and Tom Cruise themselves were adamant about keeping the film in theaters rather than sending the sequel straight to a streaming service, which is great. And when Tom Cruise was asked at the Cannes Film Festival if the sequel would skip the big screen, he said no. That was never going to happen, ever. This is a good move. This is one of the movies that we really need to get everybody back to the theater. And when we've had movies that were event movies, they've been fantastic. But it's been nice to see the movies that have gotten really good play, have gotten a good crowd that I've been able to enjoy. Of this year, of the movies that I've watched, Uncharted had a pretty decent turnout. I want to say Spider-Man, absolutely. Everybody got the same response for the Spider-Man movie. Batman got a good response. Even both times I went to go see it. And yeah, that's where I feel like things were. Now, other movies that'll come out later on will definitely make a big difference. I know Venom did a pretty good crowd too, but I did not watch Venom. But I like it. It's good to go and see that Dalton's working out really well. But anyway, for Tom Cruise at 59 years old, it could be the biggest box office weekend of his career, opening week. When you look at his previous movies, his best debut opening weekend was War of the Worlds at $64 million. Mission Impossible Fallout was $61 million. Top Gun Maverick cost $170 million to produce, not including the millions of dollars to promote the movie to audiences worldwide, including having the go spread it out over a couple of years. Splashy premiere at the Cannes, 8 fighter jets flying over the Croisette, and Skydance Media helped front the bill, co-producing and co-financing the film. So they expect the movie to at least make over $100 million. And that the audience audiences that are going to be over 40 years old, the moviegoers who were top of mind when Paramount initially greenlit to get the sequel out, to get the older audience back to theaters. It was positive word of mouth that should be helpful to get the younger audiences that were not alive when Top Gun opened 36 years ago. Not 25, 36. And they did a pretty good job of casting to change up the aviators they have for this movie. Miles Teller, Glenn Powell, John Hamm, and then Jennifer Connelly plays the Kelly McGillis role. And Val Kilmer is reprising his role as Iceman. And Variety's chief film critic was impressed by the movie, saying, quote, hardly anything in Top Gun Maverick will surprise you except how well it nearly does all the things audiences want and expect it to do. And this is not only the critics, the audiences are also following in lockstep. And when I think about it, it's not going to be that hard to kind of just go with the same kind of story and just bring it together. And remember, to get this movie in anticipation, all the pomp and circumstance of the movie being pushed out in Cannes, and then the red carpets in Japan and other places. Let's not forget about that. But also, in theaters, they actually gave us a 5-minute preview during the trailer portion, and this was during Sonic the Hedgehog I watched it. We actually got a 5-minute preview of it, exclusive to theaters, and from what I saw right there, pretty massive. It wasn't a major portion of the movie, but it was a good feeling of where it was. Pretty good stuff. So I can appreciate that. So first there was a preview of CinemaCon in Las Vegas for Top Gun 2. And exhibitors and trade press immediately called it an award season contender, given the picture's rich heart. And then there was a world premiere at San Diego Naval Base, where the red carpet was rolled out on the aircraft carrier USS Midway. Then the Cannes Film Festival last week, and Cruise sat down for a masterclass and received the surprise Palme d'Or, while French fighter jets streamed over the Palais premiere. Then it was a London Royal premiere, then a Tokyo premiere. So they're trying to get the world to watch, which was not said to be before last time. And like I said, the most theaters in U.S. and Canada that's going to be booked for this particular movie. There will be movies that they've already been putting out as of 3 p.m. on Thursday. 62 foreign markets are going to be getting the film pushed out at 23,600 locations. And they're projecting almost $80 million as an overseas opening for the movie. So I'm looking forward to it. Look, to go ahead and get this new audience to kind of get into this again. And remember, it's the same kind of formula that Ghostbusters got. Ghostbusters Aftermath kind of get that same formula. It's the intrigue over. First of all, it was about Ghostbusters with the ectoplasm and the Chargers and all that, and the Echo One and all that stuff, right? The suits, the weapons, all of it. That all got people all interested in the Ghostbusters Aftermath, and it did well. And they're going to make another one. Then you get Tom Cruise here to basically pass the baton for Top Gun Maverick. Maybe they'll do another one. Maybe Top Gun will do so well, it will just splash through across. And I also want to see if that movie, that song for the movie for Lady Gaga, if that really makes a big splash. Which, of course, we know that Top Gun, the movie soundtrack, did a major splash for it was. And that's where we are with that. So now let's go move along to what I have coming up on the program for the rest of the program. I'm going to talk about Ellen DeGeneres' final episode. She is done with her TV show. It's done the talk show. But also with a lot of things that happen where, as we talked about Ellen DeGeneres during my When I'm Not Podcasting series and all the issues that came across, especially during the pandemic. And just everything just kind of going a fireball of fury, which was probably smart for her to go and finish the show when she did because things were looking pretty bad. Then a story for the wrap, talking about how content spending for streaming isn't going down anytime soon. And then trends that are being learned about with Billboard, talking about the major trends being revealed by music companies based on their earnings of the first quarter of 2022. And then we have 5 powers and what they say about 2022 hits. So we're going to talk about the music. We're going to talk about radio and the music they're playing, and how it tells about the most popular songs they want to play in 2022. It's a really telling sign of where radio has gone and where they are today, which I'll talk about that in a little bit. Another story, why podcasts are a good investment for cryptocurrency marketing dollars. We'll talk all about that here on the program. But now, what I do want to talk about is one more movie thing to wrap things in the movie sense. And that was a story that came up about the biggest box office flops of the year and how the movie genres are struggling to drive audiences back to theaters. So in that story, Business Insider talks about it. And of course, they're showing the photo of Morbius as an example of a flop. So they make the point that the box office is on the road to recovery and seeing a vast improvement over last year. Some movies haven't given the theatrical industry much of a boost, and some outright flops like Moonfall, and others underwhelmed like Morbius. Now, the U.S. box office overall is still down from 2019, and movies that were supposed to come and help make a big difference are not getting a boost. So mostly superhero budget movies, superhero movies have been the ones that have done well. We talked about Sonic the Hedgehog. Some surprise successes like the low-budget Dog that Channing Tatum starred in. Liam Neeson starring Black Light. Roland Emmerich's Moonfall. Moonfall, they made it with $150 million and only earned $44 million worldwide. And they promoted the hell out of that movie. Wow, that is embarrassing. There were other movies that were total disasters, leaving the future of their respective franchises in question. One is the Fantastic Beasts movie, The Secrets of Dumbledore, the lowest grossing Harry Potter-related movie in the franchise yet, $200 million to make. But then you had Sony's Marvel movie, of Morbius, and it cost $75 million to produce, which wasn't much for a comic book movie, but it failed to generate the kind of interest that Venom has gotten. Then you had other movies that were flops and disappointments torn apart by critics. Others got favorable reviews when you're talking about the Viking epic, The Northman, and the Nicolas Cage movie, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which I watched both of them, and I really enjoyed both. Both were original, mid-budget, star-driven, adult-focused, and action-adventure dramas that couldn't drum up substantial interest in theaters despite the positive buzz. Now, I didn't even look how much those movies made, but I want to look at that real quick. When I look at what's going on with those of the year, so far this year, The Northman domestically pulled in, so it's already so far pulled in $33 million. And if I look at the overall overseas look, $64 million total. That's tough. And the budget was $33 million. So they made their money back, but it's not by much. Like, it's not a good showing for what they were expecting. Unbearable Weight of a Massive Talent, $19 million domestic. If I look at it overseas, not much, $24 million. And that movie had a $19 million budget, so it's barely going to scrape across. You know what? Because that's a movie you're going to get really well when you get on streaming. That movie will do well wherever that goes. I think on streaming anyway. And then Moonfall will become one of those classics that people will just go ahead and bash. It'll be like the Starship Troopers or one of those kind of movies that just tanked in the box office but will become a cult hit eventually. I think part of the thing, too, when it came to Moonfall was they had to change the look of the movie because they had one vision of how the movie was going, that it was going to be really serious and disaster. And then they had to do a funnier version. Like, we had the one character from Game of Thrones throwing some of those jokes on in the movie that had to kind of give some levity because the other trailers, I guess, did not test well. So they had to put out a second trailer to try to save this movie, which it did not work. I don't know what to tell you. Another movie I was surprised about that didn't do well is The Outfit. Only got $3 million, but I really liked the movie, and it only made almost $4 million. The budget was $3.3 million. Domestic budget. Oh, no, that's domestic box office. Excuse me. There you go. Oh, well. Anyways. That's what we got so far. Now, we look at the movies that had so far this year that really did bad. You had the 355. It came out January 7th. I watched it. I enjoyed it. They're talking about the box office flops and disappointments in release date order. I watched that. I enjoyed it. Only made $4 million. $14 million box office. Globally, $27 million. And the production budget was $75 million. It's a shame because I thought this movie was much better than everybody put it out to be. It's a shame about that, though. Moonfall. Woo. $10 million opening weekend in the U.S. box office. $19 million in the U.S. box office so far to date. $44 million global on $150 million budget. Ooh, man. Black Light, I saw that with Liam Neeson. I could have told you, anytime you put a Liam Neeson movie out, don't expect much. Like, what are you thinking when you put that out? Liam Neeson is not the draw anymore. He is not doing Taken 2, and most of those movies did not do well. Now, it was a better version compared to the other Liam Neeson movie I saw, which was... Oh, no. Black Light was the one that was bad, but Memory was a little bit better. Like, Liam Neeson has 2 movies this year. They should have been put out in February like they normally do. That might have done well. This was in February, so it's one of those popcorn movies. $43 million budget, and it got under $10 million box office overall and $15 million globally. That's bad. And the Rotten Tomato score so far, 8%. But you know what? To me, I didn't think it was that bad. Like, when I look at it, the Rotten Tomato score, 8%, but when I look at the audience, I don't think it was as bad. 82%. The audience wasn't that bad, and I wasn't that bad on it either. It wasn't the best well-written movie, but it was a better Liam Neeson movie than others, and I actually had some things that were kind of okay. Then you got Morbius, which I could have told you that was going to, when I looked at it, I was like, there's a lot of stuff they cut out. And you could tell the edited version, they need to put a director's cut out to make people feel better about this. This is going to need the Justice League damage control treatment because that's exactly what I felt when I watched this movie. There was action filled on it, but they really just kept that. Storyline that might have been in there was rushed and taken out. Ambulance was April 8th. They should have kept this in February. This was a mistake. I like this movie as well. It did not do well. $8 million opening weekend, $22 million for the box office, $51 million globally, and $40 million in the production budget. Yeah, it's not good. Fantastic Beasts, you got $42 million for the opening weekend. It made almost $100 million. Globally, $400 million, but it was a $200 million budget. Those kind of things were going on. Northman. Basically, all these are flops, but these are all movies I saw. I saw The Northman. I saw Unbearable Weight. And that's so far everything they said so far with it. And that was a $30 million budget for the Nicolas Cage movie. That's too bad. Oh, well. And when it comes to content, let's talk about that. The Netflixes of the world, even though they're hurting right now, they try to keep an audience. And all these other places are making content for the streaming services to just load up new content no matter what. It's going crazy. So a story came up from The Wrap talking about the content spending is not going to go down anytime soon. So there's more of an existential want for unique marquee content material by all the main streamers and media firms. And more fickle customers are making snap selections about what they want to watch, and more meaningful, the more and more overwhelming world of content material. Yeah, you can't even keep up. Like, how do you... it's a shame there's no appointment viewing at all. Like, right now, I know the Stranger Things is just coming out this weekend, and I'm like, it's coming out. Is it one of those shows that's going to really stand out for this one season to say, okay, you need to watch, you need to finish it, and you need to be a part of this because you're going to miss out? Yeah, I know. I know what you're saying. And there's a lot more money being spent. When you look at the money being spent now, Disney is spending $8 billion, or as much as $33 billion. Peacock is going to double the amount they've been spending out, which was as much as $3 billion. And Netflix is going up, not down. They're going to spend as much as $18 billion on content. Amazon and Apple are also raising their content material spends. So it's not whether or not content material spending will rise. It's going to. But it's the place these burgeoning content material dollars are being spent and how well they're getting spent. The more and more apparent reply is for content material spending to concentrate on immediately acknowledged and impactful literary and mental property franchises and identifying manufacturers that remedy the buyer viewing dilemma. Whatever. It's just gobbledygook. Look, what's being said here is they're basically saying they're going much less as extra right now. Now, you have some program that's branded that just alone by the fact that Disney has Marvel, Star Wars, and Pixar under their umbrella, and they can make multiple shows of anything they want, spin off anything they want, which is what they were planning to do over the next 3-4 years. They can get that enough to get people to go ahead and stay there and stick to Disney Plus. Netflix, they don't have so many series like that. And some of the other ones, they might not have shows that will have such an audience that will just draw people in to hold on to. And so that means you have to continuously work on this short attention span audience out there of streaming audiences that are fickle because they're at home. Remember this too. It's not that people won't go watch content. I mean, people are going to go ahead and spend good money to go see Top Gun this weekend. And maybe not so many people would have been as interested if that was on streaming. But Top Gun, it's an event movie. You're going to go see it there. And then you have Star Trek with their own franchise that's trying to build a lot for Paramount Plus. And that's actually helped them to get more younger people into the Paramount Plus to go ahead and order it. Things like that. But this is a lot of work. And I'm like saying to myself, I can't keep up with some of this. And, I haven't really been caught up in trying to watch a lot of shows that I'm trying to keep up with. Like right now, new shows, Better Call Saul. Like I don't have billions to watch right now because they're, waiting for a new season. Same thing. The same thing for all the Power series. We have no Power series to watch as of the moment. We will soon enough. And then after that, like I'm watching Dallas, the old Dallas just to catch up on. And it's like, the streaming services are kind of encouraging you not to watch long-running series, because there are some series that are worth watching all the way through, and that's why I'm on my trek to finish Dallas. And once I do, I have other shows to watch. I got Yellowstone and Bosch and other things. And while I'm waiting here, I'm going to probably have to catch Stranger Things and just run through that over like a weekend or two just to catch up on that, because I have to. Like, I was already into it, invested. I watched season 5 and enjoy it. It's not too big to consume to get through that and run through it, so I understand that part. Otherwise, it's a lot to work on to try to get through and just try to consume. And I feel like it's like you're filling yourself with empty content. Some of it, are you going to feel like you're getting a whole lot from it? Because for me, some people can just watch shows and it doesn't even matter really what it is. They'll just find something to watch. And I can't necessarily do that. I want something that has substance, something that will actually kind of engage me. Because I have shows that I can watch now. I watch wrestling. And wrestling I can just put on my screen. And I have 15 hours worth of wrestling every week to go and consume. And all I got to do is just leave it in the background, follow it, monitor it, and then I'll talk about it on my show. Not as easy for everybody else, though. It's just a lot of work. All right, I want to take a moment to go ahead and talk about Ellen DeGeneres, because this is deserving time about what happened to her. So her show's done. She redesigned herself, as a broadcast-ready daytime host after her 1990 sitcom Ellen was canceled shortly after her public coming out. And then she embraced cute, rubber-soled jiving as a way to express her desire to seem relatable. Now, her last episode would have already run as I record this show, cements the star's legacy. Turned her from a pop culture casualty, the woman who came out as a lesbian on her sitcom, landed on the cover of Time, only to see doors shut in her face throughout the industry, into a person with the voltage to meet presidents, host the Oscars twice, have a presence in American households each day, and worked against her. It's also worked against her because her 90s comic persona may have been more of a natural fit than her attempts to channel Oprah, and urging your audience to be kind. Not because also the reporting of her climate on her set suggests kindness was not always paramount to her. And then her impact on the LGBTQ rights movement is real. The moment of kindness she attempted to launch in her second act has been facing a new wave of legitimate skepticism. It's amazing the show's been on since 2003. 20 years. I had never watched one episode of that show. Not a one. She used her show to help people out in a material way and to provide wedding playlist uplift to viewers at home, and continued to move things forward in a lower-key manner. It's been given remarkable access to the people who are now her peers in the industry. The Kardashians were regular guests on the show as a key way station in their very public lives. They're not the only celebrities that were always friends here approach appealing. Jennifer Aniston has been on the show 20 times in its 19 seasons. But now there's new venues for such friendly chats such as Drew Barrymore and Kelly Clarkson, in particular taking the philosophy of amiability and apply it to real perspective and personality. And they were thrilled to be where they are. DeGeneres has often been seen self-impressed by giving her guests her platform. Her impact on TV remains unclear. Look, for 20 years, she is no Oprah. She's no Sally Jesse Raphael. She's not even a Jenny Jones. She filled a time slot for some people that just needed to be on TV in a dying genre of daytime television. When that used to be a big thing, when soap operas ruled, game shows were rampant, and talk shows started to make their way through and were just wild in the 90s. So she's the next generation that came after that, and she's the epitome of all these other shows that are on now that are talk shows that are just lame and boring, in my opinion. And there was nothing really with Ellen DeGeneres that made me feel like anything special about that show. What she did didn't make much of a difference to me at all. It was just blah. All right. Next, we're going to talk about radio. This story is really my wheel well. And shout out to Sean Ross at RadioInside.com for putting the story together. I got to appreciate him putting out stories like this, because this is good fodder for me, because I need these kind of stories, because it does go to a lot of what I talk about and what I think about myself. So he asks the question, how are top 40 radio stations filling their power rotation? Which is the 5 or 10 songs that are the most listened to songs, or the most requested per se, or the most popular songs on a said station? For top 40, it's like the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100. That's the kind of idea. The top 10, top 5, top 10 songs. On most stations, the top 5 songs played on a radio station will be played within 90 minutes to 2 hours of each other. So every 90 minutes or every 2 hours, you're going to hear the same songs over and over, almost in the same time. And it'll be like that for a week until they tweak and they say, okay, the next songs are going to be up here. But then what they've had was some songs have had to stay up there for a long time. And so songs have been repetitive, and top 40 has not been as fresh as it's ever been. And now that's also on the music industry, not giving us that much to work off of. 3 years ago, at a time when it felt like mainstream top 40 music was slowly rebounding, Sean Ross looked at Z100 in New York as the bellwether of available product in the late 10s. Top 40 wasn't just reaching back to recurrent to fill up power, which means bringing up records that were very popular a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago, to play them to fill up what's not, to fill up the lack of new music. There was also a stash of never quite powers that could drift back in the top rotation during a particularly soft week. With the pandemic, radio listening patterns changed. Current-driven formats were among the stations most impacted. And so for a song like The Weeknd's Blinding Lights, it lasted as one of the most overplayed songs on music radio, on the top 40 radio, the contemporary hit radio, CHR, for weeks and weeks. So at the moment right now, there is more mainstream up-tempo product. It's not translated into consistently improved ratings across the board for the format. And because of the younger listener erosion that continues, we're still waiting for proof that better music will translate to better ratings. And it's still hard for songs to make that leap to be played over and over on a radio station to keep people listening. Streaming stories have put more songs into formats consideration set. But if call-out is still an indication of when songs have critical mass, even the most phenomenal records do not look like traditional powers. So call-out means when they're just getting the response for people to listen to those songs, and they're making the radio airplay. So Z100 doesn't play that many songs over 100 times in a week. They're doing it more around 85. So if you look at their most popular songs right now, their top 8 songs that they have are Harry Styles' As It Was, which is currently number 2 in the country. Dove Cameron's Boyfriend, which is not even listed in the top 10 or top 20. Lotto Big Energy, which is a top 10 song right now. Little Nas X, That's What I Want, which was top 10 for weeks, and that's because of radio. Doja Cat Woman, which also stayed around top 10 because of radio. Justin Bieber's Ghost, Ed Sheeran's Shivers, and Lizzo's About Damn Time, which just made its way into the top 10 and stays pretty consistent. And when you look at other stations, Kiss FM in Los Angeles, Dove Cameron's Boyfriend is being played 115 times a week. Then Jack Harlow, First Class, then Harry Styles, then Becky G and Karol G with Mommy, and then Doja Cat Woman. In Atlanta at Q99.7, Harry Styles, Jack Harlow, Kid Laroi, and Justin Bieber's Stay, which has been a song that's been around for over 6 months. Post Malone of the Weeknd's One Right Now, which is never even charted that high. Then Lotto Big Energy and Doja Cat Woman. And they show some other stations that do the same thing. Pretty much very similar in what they're doing. Oh well. There's a stagnation in radio. I actually listened to the radio on the way to getting my oil changed, and I had about a 30-minute trip to get to the car dealer, and I went at 8:30 in the morning, so right around morning drive time. All I heard was very syrupy and very well scripted and nothing poignant or nothing exciting or shocking morning shows on radio of every format, by the way. All of them were boring. And loads of commercials in between. And even the commercials are boring and treaded out and flat. There's nothing to keep you listening to those stations on any regular basis, and they all sound pretty bad as well, based on what they sound like when you try to listen to them. It's not better either. It's not good at all. And what are the music companies doing right now to help this out, to work on this? So music companies have reported encouraging first quarter earnings, showing consumers continue to adopt subscription services and eagerly returning to live events. Now, COVID's kind of starting to be behind us. Music companies posted double-digit gains in subscription growth, revenue, ticket sales, and other metrics, but their share prices are down double digits in 2022. And Billboard's highlighting three factors that are influencing the music business in 2022. First, growth in subscription services are reshaping labels and publishers' revenues. Growth may be slowing, but it disappoints some investors. Second, publishing revenues saw especially strong growth in the first quarter and had more parent companies' growth than record labels. And live music is going to have a strong 2022 that'll impact not just touring artists, but record labels that sell merchandise on the road. And that's what getting off of that, thought that would be important to kind of bring up. And now finally, a story that came out for podcasts that maybe you need to go and look at, talking to cryptocurrency companies about they might be looking to go ahead and get advertising with you. So this story got put out, and there's some word right now that a survey conducted by Marrow/Matchbox in January among over 1,000 average Americans shows that cryptocurrency intenders skew male and 18 to 49 years old, and they over-index on AM, FM radio, and podcasts. So 1 in 5 people in this study are interested in cryptocurrency, are heavy radio listeners compared to 17% of the overall population. 13% of future investors are heavy podcast listeners, compared to 8% of the whole total population. 31% of podcast listeners, 25% of AM/FM listeners are either extremely or very familiar with cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that's well ahead of the 19% overall of Americans. And then Pierre Bovard, Chief Insights Officer at Cumulus Media, made the point and said high investable asset consumers who intend to invest in crypto are much more likely to be employed. Same FM radio is the soundtrack of the American worker. It makes sense that AM FM radio is the ideal platform to reach crypto investors, they say. And that crypto brands might want to advertise on talk radio, news talk, rock, and classic rock. And maybe not so much on top 40 R&B and hip-hop, oldies, classic hits, or adult contemporary sports. In the study, they also learned that risk is the biggest reason people don't plan to invest. More than half of AM/FM radio listeners and TV viewers in this study are nervous about putting their dollars into crypto. Less than a third are podcast listeners. They are. Heavy podcast listeners are fearless. They also are under-indexed on being concerned about risk. And that ad copy acknowledges risk concerns. There's no doubt some hesitancy. The risk and volatility is real. It should be featured in copy points when you're doing the ad buys and you're doing the advertising. So maybe on your podcasts like this one, you might hear more crypto ads coming up because now the studies say that there might be an audience for it. So interesting tidbit of info right there. And that's the show. We're going to keep it a little bit short tonight. I have run through everything that I have on my agenda. And that's going to leave me extra time to go and prepare to go to see Top Gun Maverick this weekend in the movie theater. And I hope all of you get to enjoy it as well. It's a good weekend to get out. Memorial Day weekend. We'll come back next week. We'll talk more. Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast as you always do. And until next week, remember that content is king and the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast. Find all the links to subscribe to the show by going to broadcasterspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program, the Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at wrestlingisreal.com.